All right, so this is the long-awaited water test video. This video is going to be a little bit long because this is part of the 34-day road trip where we went to 13 states and 10 national parks. So we did test it in Arizona, and the first test was in Arizona, and then the second test was on our property in Colorado. Those tests did not turn out well because we didn't learn, or I didn't learn of the venting issue until probably, I would say the first stop in Texas, and then we really figured it out in Ray Roberts. So that's from the point where I start cataloging all the data. But so we tested, so I have all the data right here on my phone. We tested in Ray Roberts, Texas, Red Oaks, Oklahoma, Scott Lake, Kansas, Pueblo, Colorado, Cody, Wyoming, Plymouth, Washington, and then back here in Southern California. That's where all the tests are at. So it's a good, well-rounded demographic of tests. So also what I wanted to say was we ran the trailer all night long, powering the dehumidifier. And it seemed like on average, now this is with extension cords going to the tents, it seemed like we depleted the battery banks about somewhere in that 60% range. Now it's hard to tell with what phones and heated blankets were being used in the tents to see how much we're actually using. But it seems like 824 amp hours, we depleted 60% running the dehumidifier all night. But as long as we started out the tests with the batteries above 70%, we were good to go. And we weren't gonna outrun everything. And if we started 80, we'd still have enough power in the morning to heat up coffee, whatever, and then 90, the better. But keep in mind, the trailer is also powering the refrigerator and other electronics inside of there. So I don't think that's bad for running that powerful a dehumidifier all night. The other thing I also learned, whether we produced 12 gallons or whether we produced 1 gallon, I think it used almost the same amount of power. So that's kind of interesting because it's just a little sump pump in there that turns on when it's full. So I'm sure it uses a tiny bit more, but it's not enough to really notice. One of the things that I figured out was in the more drier states, such as like Arizona, California, New Mexico, Colorado-ish, that running the test at night, so from like 9 o'clock at night till 9 in the morning, that's gonna be your highest humidity time. In higher humidity areas like Texas and Oklahoma, I think you could probably run the test, or you could just run it all day long. So keep those in mind, and also keep in mind that the first two tests that you're about to see, we didn't have good results, but just stay tuned for Ray Roberts, because then that's when it picks up. And on that test, we produced 12 gallons. So stay tuned for that. All right, so we're in Southern Colorado. We're gonna do a long-term test to see exactly what the trailer is making. In this environment, we're at 8,600 feet. We're gonna let it run from 9 p.m. till about 5 a.m. just to see what it can produce. We're currently at 80%, okay? And then the actual gauge down there, I'm gonna show you that it is actually at 0. So everything's at 0, everything is ready to go. I also might do a time lapse of these gauges so that we could see these gauges chugging around. So one thing about these gauges though, is this whole area right here is the exhaust plume of the dehumidifier. So these could be really low. What I mean is, like, outside could be 40 degrees, but the dehumidifier is giving off all this heat. And the air that is giving off is also dehumidified. So these are just going to be a reference. Realistically, I need something like this outside so that we could see what's going on outside. So we're also going to do this test in Texas, which should yield better results. But during the day today, it was only 15% humidity here. So that's barely anything. So I had my son tape up these with this electrical tape, just so it doesn't attract every bug around. But yeah, we're gonna let these things run. I might start a little bit early, but basically from 9 o'clock at night till about 5 a.m. or until the battery dies. So yeah, so I'm going to save every bit of energy I can. Turn these off. The sun just set over that mountain. But all right, we're going to get started and we're going to let this thing chug the whole night. So I'll pick you back up in the morning and hopefully that gauge will show some results. Now keep in mind, this is Colorado and it's at 8,600 feet of elevation in Colorado. So it's pretty dry here. So if we make anything, we're doing pretty good. So just gonna turn it on. All right, that's it. I'll pick you back up in the morning. All right, it is like 5 in the morning. So sounds like it's still running, so that's a good sign. Let's walk over here. So that turns it off. The fan still runs for a little bit. Alright, so I'm gonna hit the drain button, so that should empty whatever's left in the bladder or the reservoir inside there. As you can see, the sun's still rising. Put all the trash in here last night. Let's see. So we're at 16%. I think we started off at, what did we start off at, 80? Yeah. All right. So it looks like it produced 0.825 of a gallon. So almost 1 gallon. Okay, so the next test is going to be here in Texas at Palo Duro State Park. And we're going to run this all night. We're going to do the same test, which is basically from 9 o'clock at night until about 5 in the morning-ish. So currently right now it's 90 with 50% humidity, but it's supposed to get up to 80, 90% at night. So we're going to see how much it produces. But I'm going to get it started and then I'll bring you back in. I zeroed out the gauge. Family kind of destroyed all this because we got the Jolka out taking showers. But all right, about time to fire it up. All right, slipped in a little bit, but I'm gonna shut her down right now. All right, so let's see what it made. So it's 1.654 gallons. One of the problems I think I was having was the whole trailer was sealed. So the bathroom was shut and the bay door here was shut. So inside of the trailer was like really hot. And I think what was happening was that there was, let's call it backwash. So the heated dehumidified air was probably pushing out of here and then getting sucked back in. So I actually think that the 1.65 gallons is actually kind of low. So what I think I need to do is, I think that this needs to be cracked all the time. And I think that the bathroom needs to be open all the time. My wife was noticing that it was extremely hot in there. So I think that this needs to be open and the other needs to be open. So that way it's, let's say, sucking from that side and blowing out this side and blowing out over here. So yeah, so that needs to be remedied. And I think it would produce more, but that's not bad. All right, so we're gonna do a long form test. We're at Dinosaur Valley in Texas. It is currently very hot and very humid. The dehumidifier is reading 80% humidity. And the gauges inside the trailer, this one's reading 75 and this one's reading 80 degrees temperature. So we're gonna start it about 8 o'clock and hopefully let it run. We're either gonna go 12 hours or 24. All right, so the gauge is completely reset. So the other thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna leave gaps on everything so that the trailer can breathe, so that it's not hopefully getting a bunch of backwash. So like right here, yeah, I don't feel any pressure coming out. So we're gonna stick with that for a little bit, see if that helps. And we'll see how much we produce in this very hot and very humid environment currently. All right, so it is time for another test. So what happened with the last test at Dinosaur Valley was everything was going great, and for the first hour and 45 minutes everything was good because we had the bathroom door open and we had this door open, but then we had to leave, so I was going to shut everything up and then prop these doors open with just like a stick or a twig so that I could breathe. And what we noticed was that the temperature or the humidity gauge on the dehumidifier went from like high 50s, all of a sudden it started dropping to the 30s because I think this was pushing so much air that the backwash was coming out. But within that first hour and 45 minutes, according to the gauge, I'll show you right here, it produced 1 gallon of water in an hour and 45 minutes. So I think theoretically, maybe it could have produced anywhere from 6 to 12 gallons of water if I would have left everything open. So, which brings me to today. We are currently at Ray Roberts State Park in, I guess, North Texas. So we're on a lake, obviously. As you can see, it is nice and hot. This is reading 45% humidity. The other thing that was super interesting was the humidity gauge inside the bathroom was reading extremely low, where the one out here was reading higher. So that was pretty interesting. So the dehumidifier definitely was working. So what my thought is, since it is now exactly 5 o'clock, I'm gonna see, unless one of the park rangers shuts it down, I'm gonna probably run it until 5 in the morning, so 5 to 5. And we'll see exactly how much it produces, because currently right now I reset the gauge to 0. There you go. So it's not actually any more humid here on a lake than it was inside of Dallas or anywhere we were driving through. It's pretty much all the same. So I'm gonna start my stopwatch and we're gonna fire that thing up and let it run for hopefully 12 hours and see exactly what it produces. And I'm gonna try to leave this door open and the bathroom door cracked all night. So we'll see what happens. Luckily, my neighbor is on the other side of that, so hopefully I'm not bothering him, and over there. So we'll just see what exactly happens. All right, it's currently reading 60%. All right, here we go. All right, thought I'd bring you back in. The other camera's doing a sunset time lapse down there. So here's where everything's at inside, right here. We are 4 hours in, and we are 2.388 gallons. That's really doing pretty good, and it seems like it's getting more. So we'll see how it goes, or the ranger will shut me down because of quiet hours. So let's see. Here's the humidity gauge inside the bathroom, which is reading just over, what, 32%? And inside the bathroom, it's saying it's almost 110 degrees. And this is the exhaust of the dehumidifier. So I thought that was pretty interesting how it's reading very differently than inside the trailer. All right, so it is the next morning. Was able to let it run all night. So the bathroom, I had the bathroom cracked open right here, and then this extra tie from the firewood, I just tied the door so that it wouldn't rip open and bang. if the wind got bad. So it was probably open about 3 inches all night. And I'm still not sure that if that was enough. Currently right now, 62% humidity. The back door I had open probably, I would say, about 2 inches all around. So what I kept doing was I would pry this open, check the humidity on the machine itself, and when it started dropping is because the doors were getting a little too close and they started getting that backwash, and you can actually feel it around the dehumidifier itself. I'll kind of show you where I was feeling it. Like right in here, I could kind of feel the air pushing out. So it would be pushing out and then getting sucked back in. Maybe we'll demonstrate that by shutting the doors, and then you'll see the humidity go from like 61 and it'll drop in half at least. But let's see where we're at. All right, we are at 8.974. So I did some math. So here's the math I did. At 5 hours, we were at 3.28 gallons, which would be 0.6056 per hour. At 14 hours, you can see my timer right there, we're at 14 hours 5 minutes. We're at 8.974 gallons, which is 0.6410 gallons per hour. So that's over half a gallon an hour, and it increased. I think it's kind of me trying to dial in the whole venting out everywhere. So definitely there's going to have to be a future project of a more permanent venting system. Something that is the best flowing, but also secure. Because when I did wake up this morning, so there's a power line running to run the fans and lights and stuff, but I saw a squirrel running across here. Luckily here at Ray Roberts Park in Texas, there hasn't been a lot of bugs and stuff like that. But I'm gonna let this run probably till almost we leave so that I can get another data point, and we'll see. But that's pretty darn good. So half a gallon an hour. So the biggest thing that I've been missing this whole time, because I've plugged it in and then it's just been like, oh, a couple ounces, a couple liters, like what the heck, you know what I mean? This 100-pound dehumidifier I'm dragging around everywhere, because all the data on it showed that this should be overproducing, especially in an environment it can't actually dehumidify. It can't dehumidify this hot, humid Texas. So I think we'll demonstrate that other part so that we could show you that how it just drops once you close everything. But I'll probably bring you back in at the next data point. All right, we are just getting at 18 hours. The storm did kind of move in, but the humidity, I mean, it went up slightly, but it was basically what it was the whole time. But let's see what we got here. So that's at 62%, 63% now. All right, there we go. So we'll turn that off. It says 65% humidity, and then we'll hit the drain button. All right. Whoa. Looks like it did a self-drain. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think it has anymore. All right, let's go check inside and see where we're ending. All right, so we're currently all packed up and ready to go. Let me shove all this down. Let's see. Guess I could have put this gauge in a little bit more of a convenient spot. Oh, look at that. We're ending at 12.097. All right. That at 18 hours, we did 12 gallons, 0.097, and the gallons per hour have been going up. So that is pretty sweet. So this will conclude the test in Texas, but we're going to redo the test in Colorado. We're maybe going to do a test in Oklahoma and Kansas, but we'll see. But this is pretty encouraging. Now that we figured out that it is the venting problem, so there's probably going to be some projects in the future about how to overcome the vent while still keeping the trailer secure from animals and people. But this is pretty sweet. Definitely the water gauge inside the trailer when we first started this test. Now we're at a bit of an angle. It was at quarter tank, now it's at full. And the humidity and temperature gauge inside of here is reading that, and that's the exhaust, obviously, of the dehumidifier. And then this is the open trailer side. So that's what that is reading. And then there's the time to... But, so yeah, pretty sweet. So let's get on to the next location. All right, we are now in Oklahoma at Red Rock Canyon Adventure Park. Pretty crazy place to be camping. Nice green area right up against these red rocks, obviously, but it's more of a, kind of looks like Utah in a way, but we're gonna do another test here. It's a little bit less humid here. That is saying 67%, but 69 actually now, but it does jump up and drop down. But I'm gonna try to get everything so that we can have some accurate measurements so that you guys would know for your own rig. So it says it's about 100 inside. This is reading about 46, and you can see it's just past 6. So that's what this one's reading inside. So yeah, I'm gonna fire it up right now and let it go, and we'll see what it gets. I need to work my way back here through all of this jungle, and I need to reset the meter. So I'll reset that first. All right, I mean, it's the best spot for it, but almost regretting where it's at. Reset it to 0, and we're actually at 100% right now. Kind of wanted to start it right now because the solar panels are still in a decent amount of sun. All right, we'll peel this off just to make sure everything's all... Yep, there we go. So we'll put that back over that. And if it's not too late, I'll bring you back in 5 hours and we'll see where it's at. Because of my notes, I did 5 hours 14, 18. So I don't know that we'll get to 14, but maybe. But we'll see. All right, I'll see you in a bit. All right, probably about 15 minutes in, I noticed that the humidity seemed to be dropping. And I just wanted this noted, because right there it says 37. I do have the bathroom. The back's completely open, and the bathroom is completely open. So we'll see. All right, we're approaching 5 hours. It's nice and dark out. Dehumidifier is reading 62. All right. So just gonna wait for it to fully turn off. And then I'm gonna hit the drain, and then we're gonna go see, and we're gonna calculate. It's definitely not as humid here. I can walk around and not be covered in sweat immediately, but just trying to get some base numbers on, what we can go from. All right, there we go, just shut off. Let me hit the drain. All right, let's walk back around and see what we got. Don't mind the mess, don't mind the buckies. All right, so let me get you guys down in here. You guys see what we got? 2.861. All right, so I crunched the numbers. So here in Oklahoma, after running 5 hours, we got 2.861 gallons for a total of basically half a gallon an hour, so 0.5722. But all right, that's pretty cool. I think we're gonna do the same test in Kansas just to see, and then we'll do this test in Pueblo to see. But I think we're starting to get some good numbers here. All right, we are at Scott Lake in Kansas. So the elevation here is 2,800 feet. Let's see, the wife is in here cooking dinner right now. We are looking at, it's about 100 degrees in here and 43% humidity, something like that. It just turned 8 o'clock. Let's see what's going on in the bathroom. So the bathroom, it's showing about the same for now. So we're gonna do this test here. So it's a bit drier here for sure. According to my phone though, the weather app, we're right here right now, about almost 40%, and then it's supposed to start going up. And let's see. So that's about 3 in the morning, 65%, about 80% at about 6, 7, and then slowly dropping off. So I think we're gonna start this test now. This will probably be about a 12-hour test, I'm guessing. The dehumidifier itself is only reading 38%. So we're gonna get this thing fired up. So this is gonna be more of a, probably very similar climate, it feels like, to California actually. A bit drier than Oklahoma and Texas, for sure Texas. But we're gonna start getting that data to see if it's producing relatively the same and what we can extrapolate from that. All right, so here we go. Let's see. All right, now fired right up. Let's take this off. Yep, compressor's on, power's on, continuous defrost is on. So I don't know if I'll be able to check back in at 5 hours, which is where all of our data is at, 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours. But we'll just have to be what it is. So 38%. I zeroed out the gauge inside there. Let me just show you that. Ow. Ow. So right there you can see the gauge is zeroed out. But all right, the sun's going down. The humidity should start going up. This is probably how I'm gonna have to run the test in Pueblo, Colorado, because it makes no sense running the test during the day, because during the day, it's only like 20% humidity, and some places even lower. So it makes more sense to run it at night. Unfortunately, I'm not generating the power at night, but gonna probably have some plans on that for the future. But all right, I'll see you, I think probably at the conclusion of this test. I'll bring you back in. All right, it is the next morning. We are just approaching 12 hours. The dehumidifier is at 41% humidity. So we got about a minute left, and then I'm gonna shut it down and hit the drain. Jumped up to 44, 43, 44, 45. It shut off, it jumped up to 51. Let's hit the drain. All right, that sounds like it's got everything. Let's check out the temperature and humidity gauges before we see how much it produced. Let's see here. All right, so we're just over 70 degrees. This is saying, what, 76 relative humidity. You see right there. It is just past 8 in the morning. So that's reading 60% humidity and about 80 degrees. But this is the exhaust of it. So let's go in and check out what we actually produced. All right, 5.924. All right, so as you can see, it definitely picked up at night. We're still kind of averaging in that half a gallon range. Now you can see that in Texas we were producing quite well, and especially on the 18-hour test. So definitely overnight is where it's at, especially if it's a little bit warmer. See, because there's a delicate balance there where if it's too cold at night, even though the humidity is high, the dew point will be too low for the dehumidifier to work. So I'm thinking. But all right, the next test is going to be in Pueblo, Colorado, which should be even drier, I'm assuming. And then from there, we'll do a test in Wyoming. So we're getting some good data together. All right, so I'm in Pueblo, Colorado. It is currently 11 at night. So this is reading an hour early because we came from Texas. I guess I gotta change that. So anyways, it's 11:03. We are at about almost 70 degrees and 70% humidity. I reset the timer, I reset the counter, and we have 99% battery life. Whispering because it's quiet here. So the dehumidifier itself is reading 74%. So I'm hoping I don't bother anybody here. And we're gonna get this party started. But all right, I'll pick you back up in the morning. All right, just stopped it, let it run for 9 hours. So let it run another hour because the humidity was so high. It is currently 68% on that, but we are currently packing up and leaving. All right, so let's see how much we produced. Got the solar down to 27%, so that's fun. There's no power at this one. This is actually plugged into the inverter to the tents, so everybody can charge their devices. All right, so let's get down here. All right, so we produce 4.265. All right, there is the data. 9 hours at 4.265 gallons, which equaled 0.4738 gallons per hour. So still almost averaging half a gallon an hour. And sure, it was a little bit better in Kansas, and then even better in Oklahoma, and then really good in Texas. But this is still a really good average to get water. So the next place we're going to test is in Wyoming. So I'll pick you back up there. All right, we are 22 minutes into the next test. The dehumidifier is reading 42%. We are in Cody, Wyoming at another campground. Now this campground, it's pretty quiet after 10, so I don't know if I can run it after 10. So I was kind of hoping to run it for about 4 hours, just so I'd have some kind of test results from Wyoming, because we'll be in Montana tomorrow. So the gauge is in here, currently reading just over 80 and then 40. So very similar to the dehumidifier. And I have the bathroom door. I found a strap we weren't using, so it's just strapped open because it's extremely windy right now. But I'll bring you back in when I stop the test and we'll figure out what it's actually producing. All right, it is the next morning. I did let it run a little bit longer I let it run till about midnight. So that was a 6-hour test. It looks like it is 1.623. All right, so that means it was 0.275 per hour. I recorded the humidity that my phone was talking about in this area, but the gauges themselves were all reading in the 40% range. And this morning when I shut it off, it was at 45. So I don't think it got really that humid here. And I've noticed with the other tests, the longer it went, the more efficient it was. So even though we were on a lake here, it wasn't quite as efficient because I wasn't able to let it run probably for maybe 10 plus hours. Because right now it's reading 69%. But as you saw, the gauges on the inside weren't reading that high. So I think that is interesting test results here. But now hopefully we can try it out in Montana. All right, next test. We are in Washington. Unfortunately, the sun's setting right now. Unfortunately, in Montana, all of the campgrounds, nope. No generators of any type, nothing going on there. So right here, I got power running to the tents because kids want to run all kinds of crazy stuff. But I don't expect good results from here because if you look right now, it is 9 o'clock at night and it is 32%, 38%. So I don't expect good results. I've zeroed out the gauge on the inside, so we'll see what happens. Supposedly around midnight or so, it's supposed to get up to about 50%, but I figured we'll just let it run. So right now that's reading like 40, just in here chilling. So we're in a different time zone now. We're in Pacific Standard instead of Mountain. So, yeah. All right, I will bring you back in. My plan is just to let it run all night unless the RV host here stops me. So, and this is Plymouth, Washington. It is not very humid here. It's about in the 90s during the day. See, right now that's reading 38%. The app says 38%. That's saying, or the app says 37. That's saying 38, and it's saying that it's going to go up maybe around midnight to about 50. And then around 5 a.m., 61. So we'll see how that goes. But I'll pick you back up then. All right, 10 hours. It's currently at 44% humidity here. So from what I've been noticing, I feel like, see, because this says, I'll show you right there. This says 57% it should be right now. The dehumidifier is only reading 43, so I don't know if it actually got as high as what that is saying. So we're gonna wait for the dehumidifier to do its full shutdown. All right, it's doing its full shutdown, and then now I'm gonna do the purge. Now it's actually going back up now. So there might be something about when it's running. All right, so let's go into the trailer and let's see what it actually produced. It definitely produced because the gauge inside the bathroom was actually up a decent amount. So we'll see what it actually produced. Looks like 2.209. All right, so there's the results from Plymouth, Washington. So 10 hours, 2.209 gallons, which equals out to 0.2209 per hour. So that's 0.8 of a liter an hour. So it is definitely down, but I don't think it was very high humidity here, but it's still produced. Surprisingly enough, Colorado, which is known to be super dry, produced more, almost half a gallon an hour. So definitely interesting there. So those are the results so far. All right, this is the California test. We ran it for 10 hours. It is currently reading 57% humidity, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because on the app it's saying 39% at my location. Those two have not been, I would say, accurate to each other. And then once it was on, it was kind of reading in the low 40s. So here's what inside the trailer is currently indicating. It is a heat wave here in California where it is well over 100 during the day. And you can see from here, it just kind of drops down. I'm pretty reluctant to say that anywhere in this location we saw, anywhere near around 70%. Let's look at what it actually produced over the 10 hours. 3.446 gallons. Let's go to our chart. All right, so this is what it produced in California, which is better than Plymouth, Washington, better than Cody, Wyoming, not better than Pueblo, Colorado. I am starting to think that I need more weather stations here on the trailer, outside the trailer, so that I know what the outside actual humidity and temperature actually is. This reading inside helped out to figure out some other problems, but now we need some more solutions to make the data just that much more accurate. All right, so we're back from the road trip, and actually we took another road trip. So here's everything I learned about trying to generate water on the road with a giant dehumidifier like this. So the first thing is, I feel like I need an outside temperature, humidity gauge, maybe mounted up there, sort of away from the trailer, but still localized to the trailer so I can see what the humidity is actually doing around us. So I found one that I like, and that'll be a future project, figure out how to mount it up here somewhere. It won't be there constantly. It'll probably just be there when we're parked so that I can see what is actually going on, because this gauge is slightly off than the gauge in the bathroom and the gauge in the back. But those gauges actually informed me of a lot of what was going on with the trailer. One of the things it informed me of was this area was a lot hotter when the dehumidifier was running. So I was able to see that other than just feel it. It was a lot hotter, and the air was a lot drier inside here than it was outside. So that's another thing of why I would like an outside humidity gauge. Maybe even something that we could space a little bit further away from the trailer so that whatever's happening with the trailer is not getting affected by it. And then the other thing is the bathroom was taking the brunt of all the airflow, all the CFM coming off of it, which it should, because that's where I put the big vent. But I was thinking that there'd be enough, gap around this and up there in the top, because the top is actually not sealed. It actually bleeds off into the rest of the trailer. I was thinking that there was going to be enough bleed off or what have you to be able to run this, but there wasn't. And I didn't learn this until after Arizona, I believe. I think it was on our property in Colorado that I actually learned this. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm going to start up the dehumidifier so you can see what I'm talking about. So currently right now, it is at 55% humidity. So let me turn it on. Let's get it running. All right, so I have these two strings right here. Let's see. Yeah, you can only really see the bigger one. So you can see that nothing's really happening right now because the bathroom door is open and the back is open, but I'm gonna close those right now. So I want you to keep an eye on the humidity. See how it's dropping? Watch when I close the bathroom door. So we're now down to 49%. Okay, now I can feel air pushing out of here. So now let me have this string right here. It's a little bit heavier than I would like, but I'm doing this so that you can see that there's actually air. So this is sucking in. So you see if I put that right there, it sticks to it, but up here, it's getting pushed out. So what is happening is the air that is getting pushed out the other side, which is already dry, is getting pushed out here and then sucked back in, and then getting pushed out here and sucked back in. So it's like this endless cycle of pushing out dehumidified air and going back in. What I eventually figured out is this thing is nowhere near breathing enough. It is basically pressurizing the whole trailer. And then since this is the only thing that's like really open, see, it's still dropping. Look at, we're down to 43 now. So here's a lighter string, and you can see it's just like a breeze blowing out of here. But then right by the dehumidifier gets sucked in, but then right here it's getting blown out. So, and then look at that, it's already down to 41. So how do we remedy this? Well, I have a couple of ideas how we remedy this. I think the first thought is to put a gasket around this somehow. Maybe like a pull tie or a cinch with maybe some canvas around this, and then attach it around here so that this is more sealed. But we need to figure out a way for the inside of the trailer to breathe more. So my initial thought is, since this is taking the brunt of everything, I was thinking maybe right here, I cut out the floor and I put a vent in there, because this is already kind of aiming down, and then have a giant vent right there. And maybe that'll help keep it a little bit quieter, because otherwise we're looking at a vent probably in the side of this door, which I don't necessarily like, but possible. We could put something right here, but it would have to be a very large vent, because I'm kind of thinking that the vent I would put in the floor would probably be from there to there to there to there, and then maybe make it out of angle iron with some rods, and then some mesh, so no critters could get in, but it could breathe a lot. It's going to show you up here. So yeah, so all of this can breathe up here. So the other thought is to put some vents in the back of the trailer right here. I'm not sure where, maybe here and here, because as you're driving down the road, wind comes off the side right here and creates a vacuum on the back. So this would possibly also help cool down the inside of the trailer. So that is another thought of putting stuff there. But so a couple of the early tests I didn't really figure this out until I literally I looked at the temperature or the humidity, I looked at it, and then I walked around and started closing everything. And then I came back to double check it, and then it just started going tink, 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 dropping down. I was like, so then I started investigating it a little bit better. So I'm still happy that I put the temperature humidity gauge in the bathroom, because that showed me what was going on in there. And I'm still happy that I put one in the back of the trailer there. I still think that I need an outside, basically weather station, maybe up here in the center or just somewhere, especially one that keeps data. Like, that would be really cool, because I'm just basically pulling data from the sensors that are here and on my phone, the GPS data, which I haven't found that to be super precise, especially not for what we're looking for. But we definitely made a ton of water this trip, and I believe we learned a heck of a lot, so I'm very excited about all that. So if we're putting it vents on the trailer, we have to be cautious of where we're putting them, because we wheel stuff in and out of here all the time. So maybe up here would work. I don't really want to put anything in the middle. This had to be in the middle for the hammocks. Also, I don't want to do any of the tests without the shelves being full, because in a realistic scenario, they're always kind of full. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas of what we could do, we can always put a window right here, but that might be more than likely blocked by the tubs that are right here. This side's getting pretty full with all the patches and stuff. We could do something right around those areas. I'm not quite sure. I would like a little bit more circulating air in here as we're driving down the road, just to keep the inverter cool, and then the fridge actually generates a little bit of heat. So that would be cool. But trying to figure all that out while not impeding with what the dehumidifier is doing is taking a bit of thought. So if you guys have any helpful hints on how to make that produce more. So I actually think that we could produce a lot more once we figure all that out. I think the vent in the bathroom is probably a must, and then the gasket around this is definitely a must. So it can only suck from right here, and even if it gets pressurized a little bit, it's still forcing the air out the other way. I think that that's going to help a lot. See, it's already back up to 50%. But overall, we're super excited how this worked out. I was a little bit disappointed in the beginning of the trip because this issue, but once I figured out the issue, I started spacing out the bathroom door, and I started spacing out the drawbridge door at night when I was running it, and that seemed to help a lot. But I still think that we could produce more with a bigger vent inside and then a gasket of some sort right here. So let me know if you have any ideas about that. But a few of the places we actually stayed did not have water, and where we generated water in Texas actually really helped out, because then in Wyoming, we actually took a shower with all that water. So that was like super cool to take a shower with all the water that we generated. So I think that's it. Thanks for watching. If you have any helpful hints or tips, that would be great. But I'd like to eventually start to, with the outside weather station, start to dial it in a little bit more. Like if it's this much humidity outside, we can expect this much per hour. We're kind of honed in on it a little bit, but I'd like to hone on it a little bit more. This gauge right here was flawless and counted everything. So I'm pretty excited about that. Can't say anything more about it. Like, it's all working very well. I'm hoping once we dial everything in, we can see how much more water is possible to generate, and that should be pretty exciting. So stay tuned for those videos. But if you want to see how we built any of this, there'll be a link down in the description. But thanks for watching.